He's answering the question, how does God make things right with us? What then are we to say was gained by Abram, our ancestor according to the flesh? And here, remember the last part of Romans 3 said, there's no boasting left because we all come in on the same terms. For if Abraham was justified by works, he has something to boast about, but not before God. For what does the scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. The one we just read in Genesis 15:6. Now, to one who works, wages aren't reckoned as a gift, but as something due. But to one who does not work, but trusts him who justifies the ungodly, that kind of faith is reckoned as righteousness. You see how we've channeled into Genesis 15:6, and it happens all those many chapters before the law ever comes. Right? So if one of the narratives that he's countering is that the way into God's favor is through the keeping of the law, Paul is going to point out the keeping of the law is a deep afterthought relative to this. It's a lot later. It becomes, okay, these are the ways we're going to do better in the world once we get out of Egypt, right? So Paul is tapping into Abram, and so as he continues, there's a little part about David and blessing, but I'm going to skip over that for time's sake. As he continues, is this blessing then pronounced only on the circumcised or also on the uncircumcised? Also notice that chapter 15 comes before the covenant of circumcision in Genesis, which is 2 chapters later. We say faith was reckoned him as righteousness. How then was it reckoned? Before or after he'd been circumcised? Well, it was not after, but before. He received the sign of circumcision 2 chapters later as a seal of the righteousness that he had by faith, while he was still uncircumcised. The purpose was to make him the ancestor of all who believe, without being circumcised, and who thus have righteousness reckoned to them, and likewise the ancestor of the circumcised, who are not only circumcised, but follow the example of faith that their ancestor Abraham has. Do you see another attempt of Paul to put scripture beneath his claim that the floor is level? The Jews and Gentiles are deep in the soup together, and the Jews and Gentiles are also redeemed together. Equal terms, nobody gets to boast. What kind of social circumstance do you think Paul is imagining in the Roman church or any of his churches that might evoke this strong statement? Well, it's likely that there might have been a one-up, one-down social sense in some of the house churches in Rome. Right? Oh, you're a Gentile. Well, you can come in, I guess. Right? We started in Jerusalem a couple decades ago, and we've been rolling at this for a while, but God rightly thinks you should come in. It's just, why don't you sit right over here? Right? You can imagine a sort of Paul is trying to eliminate the possibility that there is going to be a place of advantage, an advantage starting point for the Jews in this community. Right? And so he goes to Abraham and he plays that out in terms of the equality of need and the equality of help.